our wiki is pretty good for is it gives us the freedom to do a lot of writing exercises. One of the earliest ones we did was we wanted to get a sense of what each race sounds like, just stereotypically. Because as a writer, it's always easier to write if you can hear the voice in your head, and all writers listen to the voices in their head, no matter what the voices tell them to say. So what you're about to see is 6 versions of, well, because we're writers and we're here in Seattle, it's 6 versions of "Let's go get a cup of coffee." And these are the ones I said I would read out loud. The Amon, they're very direct, right? They're part samurai, part pro athlete. So for them, it's just very basic. Coffee, now, let's do this. And the Amani have had it rough for centuries, and they don't have time for a lot of this nonsense about talking and stuff. The Baraka, on the other hand, they are librarians in the bodies of linebackers. And so they have a thesaurus. They're not afraid to use it. So for them, it's more like, coffee, that most stimulating concoction. Shall we quench our thirst together? There's a certain gentleness to the Baraka when they speak. Now, to be clear, not when they're stabbing you. Just the Castanics, as you may have noticed in the kiosks, they all look like they were in The Cure. There are devil-may-care rock stars. And key to the whole Castanic mindset is the notion of a deal. They're a little bit like the fictional, not the actual, but the fictional, Madame Zoltana style gypsies at the crossroads, right? And so, I need coffee and so do you, my friend. Maybe we'll get a deal from the barista. The most important word in that up there is deal. Castanics think about deals, about bargains that go well for them, bargains that may or may not go well for you. Then the High Elves. The High Elves in TERA are political creatures that would make Machiavelli cry bitter tears of sadness at his own inadequacy. And so, their go out for coffee is a marvelous beverage. Coffee, perhaps a group could gather and drink together. The grammar nerds in the room notice that not only am I not using first person there, I'm not even using second person. It's entirely indirect. And they don't speak that way all the time, but they're way more apt to use it than anyone else because they don't want it associated with them. Just people are having coffee. It's very much part of the high elven mindset. It's often said that high elves don't have sheaths for their daggers. When they're not using their dagger, they just put it in the back of the nearest other high elf. The Papori, on the other hand, they have a sinister quality like the high elves, but theirs is much more mischievous. There are nature spirits, right? And so, but they're not happy, friendly nature spirits. They're like, let's lead them into the forest and then desert them so they die. So their cup of coffee is 5 of these cups are hazelnut mochas. 6th, let's call it bitter almond. When the Papori barista asks you if you want to leave room for iocane powder, say no. And then lastly, the humans. Thone just got some beans all the way from Alamanthea. Let's go to his place. That sounds pretty normal, right? And it should, because our extensive market research tells us that more humans will buy TERA than any other race. But that said, there's some key things there that speak specifically to the human experience in TERA. They're unifiers, and they are more cosmopolitan. In the backstory for TERA, the humans were cursed to wander for thousands of years, and so they tend to have a more cosmopolitan outlook. They've been everywhere, and they've seen at least the periphery of everything. And the other thing is they're natural uniters. Thone, in this example, has no idea you're showing up for coffee at his place. Because he's human, he might not mind. Humans are the natural unifiers, and they bring people together, whether those people just show up on your doorstep one day thirsty or not. One of the things we do, and this is where I should warn you all, we're heading towards the audience participation part of the evening. These are the diamonds, and this is an exercise I have the writers go through all the time, and they make me do it too. The notion is that it's really easy to come up with a single trait or a couple of traits to identify a typical character in an NPC. You know, Bob is brave, Sally is sad for the loss of her children, something like that. But to add some nuance, it's better really if you come up with 3 or 4 traits for each NPC. And so one of the things we do is an exercise we call the diamond exercise, where we come up with 4 traits. Now I wouldn't base a novel on an NPC that had only 4 traits. You know, he's thrifty, clean, reverent, and brave, or whatever. but for storytelling in a game where that person only has a moment of your attention, you know, that you'll probably talk to a typical person, a typical NPC, maybe 3 or 4 times. They only have your time, your brain space for a few minutes. So we find that 3 or 4 traits is a good way to have the proper amount of nuance without it all being so muddled that you can't possibly fit it into what's a fairly small story hole, you know, the room you have to tell the story. So, and that's just the first step. Then we start drawing crazy lines, connecting all these NPCs to each other, and we see what traits they have in common, and that suggests certain quests. This is a brainstorming exercise that gets things going. The other thing that we do is we write these diamonds for major groups and for races. If you want to know what the stereotypic Castanic is, we've got a diamond for the Castanics. And now, not every Castanic has all 4 traits. In fact, none of the Castanics have all 4 traits, because that would, you know, at that point you're just a cardboard cutout. But we always pick a couple of them from the race, so that you feel like the Castanics act like Castanics, and the Elves act like Elves, and so on. So we're going to do an exercise here. We're gonna do a diamond here, collectively in the room. All right, Fran, could I have you front center, please? Fran is going to act out our diamond. Now we're gonna keep it simple for ourselves. Usually when the writers, when we start a diamond exercise, we know some basics. We know race. In this case, let's do human, because, you know, Fran. And let's do female. And we know, let's give her a location and a role. She'll be the guard on the edge of what are called the Tenebra's mines. It's a mid-level zone. It's a mid-level zone in the game where it's these dark, creepy mines, but they're not mining for ore there. They're mining for fragments of ancient artifact weapons. So it's combination weapons R&D and mining. And even the members of the Valkian Federation who are at the entrance of the mine, like our character here, don't know what's in the furthest recesses of the mine. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is, because we know she's human, we're going to grab 2 traits from the human part of the diamond.